A lot of interesting things going on with DJI this week. Not easy to keep up. A massive update for the Mini 3, new firmware for the aircraft and the remote control, a new version of DJI Fly app with several important and useful functionalities. The RC controller is finally compatible with the Air 2S, which will make a lot of owners of this model very happy. And finally, the Mavic 3 Classic, the much more affordable version of the flagship model to be released just in a few days. In this video, I will concentrate on the update for the Mini 3 Pro, as there are plenty of them, some of which very useful. Make sure to have an internet connection, and when the drone is connected to the controller, a message should appear on the screen about the update. Otherwise, it is possible to force the update by going to the settings in the tab About to check for firmware updates. Make sure to have enough battery in the aircraft and the controller. The process will take about 15 minutes. Once finished, the firmware of the drone, the one of the controller, and DJI Fly app are all updated to the current versions. But when using a different battery, the update has to be performed again, but this time it will only take a few minutes. The notes describe support for enhanced transmission. Let's have a quick check. With my unit, I always experience very poor signal in areas with interference. It is my only major complaint about the otherwise excellent Mini 3. Some users seem to have the same issues, while others are perfectly happy with the signal. Obviously, signal transmission varies a lot according to geographic location. Let me know in the comment below how is the transmission with your unit. This is an area where I do a lot of tests with my drones. There are several villages, one after the other. Everyone here carries at least one mobile phone, therefore there is a good deal of interference. Let's start in a direction of medium interference, where I generally get pretty good results. In previous tests, I could fly up to about 600–700 meters before losing the connection. Let's see if we can get farther. At 700 meters the signal is still very good, and even at 1000 meters there are no issues. I'm not going to try to go farther than 1 kilometer, as it is in breach of regulations, and I really don't need to go any farther for video and photos. So, in an area of average interference, the improvement is massive. Let's try now the other direction. As you can see, on the top of the hill there are plenty of massive communication areas, and the transmission tends to be extremely bad. I've always had severe signal issues here. Let's see if now I can make it past the top of the hill. But the signal is still very poor and I cannot reach the top of the hill, more or less the same I could do before the update. So the transmission in my unit seems to have improved a lot in average condition, but not in extremely difficult ones. Still a very good result, very happy with it. Let's check now the new options for exposure in Pro mode. Since the Mini 3, like most prosumer drones, has fixed aperture, we only have two parameters to set for exposure: ISO and shutter speed. If we open the window for exposure in Pro mode, we notice two new auto buttons for ISO and shutter speed. Further down there is the usual slider, showing the luminosity resulting from the values of the two parameters, compared to the correct exposure according to the app. This value cannot be modified. Using these new buttons to the left, we can now set one of the two values, either ISO or shutter speed, as auto. Let's say we want a fixed value for ISO, 100, to get the best possible quality. In this case we set ISO to 100 and shutter speed to auto. As you can see, when the luminosity varies, only the value for shutter speed changes to maintain the correct luminosity. Notice that the value has now turned into EV for exposure value, and it can be modified. I find that the level of luminosity suggested is too high, therefore I prefer to lower the EV value to -0.7 to avoid overexposing. On other occasions we should have a constant value for shutter speed, let's say 1/50th of a second for the correct amount of motion blur, assuming that we are using a frame rate of 24 frames per second. So we set the shutter speed to 1/50th of a second and the ISO to auto, and this time as the luminosity increases or decreases, only the ISO is modified. We can also choose to put both value to auto. Now it is very much like using auto exposure, but there are some advantages compared to the traditional auto mode. In auto mode we have no indication of the individual values for ISO and shutter speed. While using this method we can see both values. Also notice that with this method the ISO value is modified by much smaller steps compared to manual mode, where we can only move by a full ISO stop. By watching carefully we notice that the changes in luminosity are much smoother compared to what we obtain in auto mode. Vertical video is an important feature for the Mini 3 for many users involved on social media platforms. A previous update added the ability to shoot hyperlapse in portrait mode. This one has the possibility to shoot master shots in vertical format. Let's see how it works. We simply rotate the camera into portrait orientation by tapping on this icon. Then, in the photo video menu, we choose master shots. We select a target by drawing a box around it, in this case this white building, and we press the green shutter. For a few seconds the aircraft evaluates the scene, and then for a couple of minutes it will perform a series of automated moves around the target. If you want to know more about master shots, you can watch my video about this topic. I will post a link at the end of this one. According to the notes, DJI Fly app now supports the use of wide-angle lenses. DJI proposes one model to expand the field of view from 81.5 degrees to 114 with photos and from 75 to 100 with video. There are also several other proposed by third parties, but I must admit that I have not tried them yet. Another very interesting new feature is the possibility to add sharpness and noise reduction to footage shot both in normal and in Disney-like mode. It also works with still images. It is a welcome functionality many users had been asking for. In the top camera of the settings, there is now this function style with two sliders, one for sharpness with 5 steps from -2 to +2, and another one for noise reduction with 4 steps from -2 to +1. Let's start with sharpness. This is a clip taken with the value at 0. When I switch the sharpness value to -2, we can clearly see that the scene gets instantly softer. Now I go from -2 to the maximum value for sharpness, +2, and the difference is even more evident. Let's now have a look at the two clips face to face. The difference is certainly very noticeable. The choice is a matter of preference, so let us know in the comment your opinion. I have always found that the footage taken with the Mini 3 lacks just a little touch of detail. The value +2 is a bit too sharp, but I'm very happy with +1 for just a bit of extra detail. In any case, this slider is a very welcome addition. Let's now have a look at the slider noise reduction. In this top-down shot I've pushed ISO to the maximum value, 6400. Normally I would not shoot at such a high value, but this is useful for the purpose of our test. There is obviously a lot of noise. When I set the slider noise reduction to -2, we notice even more noise and also a touch of extra detail. Then I set the slider to +1 and we clearly notice a decrease in noise, but the image becomes very soft. I am less intrigued by this slider as I always use the excellent neat video for denoising, and with this tool, noise is not an issue. You will find info about neat video in the description, or you can watch my video about it by clicking on the link on the screen. Let's try now the sharpness slider with photos. First with the slider set to 0, then to -2, and then to +2. Here again the difference in detail is very evident. The noise slider works with photos too, but with still images taken with the Mini 3, noise is not really an issue, as we can use slower values for shutter speed compared to video. Also, the very wide aperture of f1.7 gathers plenty of light. Click on this link to watch my video about master shots with the Mini 3 Pro. And don't forget to hit the like button if you find this video interesting. Thank you.